Okay, we are recording. Welcome to the Boulder Arts Commission meeting. It is June 25th, 2025, and I will call roll. Cheryl Cardoso,
Aye.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
Maria Cole. Here. Jeffrey Cash. Jill Katzenberger. Here. Caroline Kurt.
Here.
Diane. Yeah. Yale Weil is not here. I will now hand the meeting over to the chair for procedural items.
Great, thank you. We're gonna start with the land acknowledgement. The city of Boulder acknowledges the city is on the ancestral homelands and unceded territory of indigenous peoples who have traversed, lived in, and stewarded lands in the Boulder Valley since time immemorial. Those indigenous nations include the Apache, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Comanche, Pawnee, Shoshone, Sioux, and Ute. The city of Boulder recognizes that those now living and working on these ancestral lands have a responsibility to acknowledge and address the past and must work to build a more just future. And with that, I'd like to approve today's agenda. If anybody would like to make a motion, please.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
All right, everybody in favor? Cheryl, yes or no on the agenda? Raise your hand.
Oh, on the agenda, sorry. Yes. Yes, on the agenda. Jumping
Yeah,
ahead.
Great, unanimous. And we'll move to the approval of the May meeting minutes from last month.
Have a small change.
Okay,
Under the liaison updates, there was an update on EVOCA that I gave, 2 sentences. Second sentence should say, EVOCA recently opened a new exhibit. Says something else. The flyer was then and it closed, but they opened a new exhibit.
Thank you. I will update that.
And referring to an internship on there, the dairy was spelled as the diary.
Oh.
It happens. To me a lot.
any other amendments? Great, if anybody would like to make a motion to include those amendments.
I'll move to approve with those amendments.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor? Cheryl?
Cheryl and I weren't here, so we are.
This one I'm abstaining from because I wasn't at the meeting.
I know, I'm with you there, sweetheart. I was waiting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the motion carries with 4 votes. Great, and we will move on to public participation, and I know you've had some introductory slides, and then I have an announcement, and then we'll call.
Okay. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and council, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, you can visit the website on the screen. The city will enforce the rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code, section 16B, including participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their full name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. No attendee shall disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of any council meeting in a manner that obstructs the business of the meeting. This also includes failing to obey any lawful order of the presiding officer to leave the meeting room or refrain from addressing the council. Only one person at a time at the podium, unless an accommodation like an interpreter is required. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No standing in or otherwise blocking the aisles in violation of the fire code or in any way that obstructs the vision or audio of other audience members. No signs or flags shall be permitted in council chambers except for one sign held by a person measuring no more than 11 by 17 inches, which is held no higher than the person's face. No participant shall make threats or use forms of intimidation against any person. We ask that you not affix items to the podium or dais or walls or other surfaces of the chamber. Signs, flags, or other items used to communicate must be held by one person when displayed. Obscenity or other epithets based on race, gender, or religion and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the meeting will not be tolerated. In-person participants are asked to refrain from expressing support or disagreement verbally or with sounds such as applause or snapping, with the exception of declarations. Traditionally, support is shown through American Sign Language applause.
Great. I know that we have a full signed up in person. Do we have anybody online?
If anyone online, we don't have anyone online, so.
Okay, great. So the reminder for those who are speaking in person today, we'll have 3 minutes per speaker. And I'll give you a little motion when you're running out of time. And then we are in the middle of our, which grants, I guess, community projects for individuals and the arts education grants. So if you are an applicant for either one of those, just be advised that the commission is sequestered until we have a vote. So that means, what that means is that you're free to come and make some comments, but restrict to not speaking about the project that you have applied for. We will not be able to hear those comments. Okay.
And then,
These are the two.
those are the two.
Great. We'll start with Rory Fitzgerald Bledsoe. Yeah. And then, yes, the best place so that we can get you on the online is to come over by where Jill is. And if you can move that chair out of the way. And this is the camera right here, so project so that we can hear you online as well for the recording.
Hi, my name is Rory Fitzgerald Bledsoe. I am an artist and curator living in Boulder, and I have run a experimental art project space called Space Space in East Boulder. I was one of the applicants. I wasn't aware that I wasn't allowed to speak about the process or my specific application until now. So I will amend my comment to speak more generally. I think my biggest concern in terms of the evaluations of the grants was the open call on social media for people of all backgrounds and all people who are psychotherapists, people who are vets, to be evaluating the grant application. And this is something that's like very much outside the norms of arts funding. And I question whether we should be seeking people who are experts in the field to provide, because I think only experts really in terms of this can evaluate. And I think that's really important since these projects are so critical. I know that so many of us have projects that we're so passionate about. And I also know that, I will say more generally, I know that it was very competitive. It came down to only a few points. And so I wanted to ask, because there were so many projects, I looked at them, there's so many amazing projects out there. And I just wanted to ask, maybe we would consider to disperse the funds a little bit more democratically, since the points, it came down to only a few points for many of us. And maybe think about how we're gonna disperse them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for that feedback. I know that it's a new program that we have a committee, and so just as part of our annual review, we always look at and consider feedback like that, so thank you. Great. Our next speaker is Gwen Burek.
Hi, I'm Gwen Burek. I'm the Deputy Director of the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, and I'm just here to give a quick update on the work that's being done for the new museum and the new museum site, which I know many of you are aware of or heard of, and many thanks to Maria for keeping folks updated. I noticed in the minutes last month that Maria had shared that the programming phase had been completed, and so we are definitely in the work of the architect, and the teams of stakeholders trying to envision what a great new museum will look like in terms of our flagship up in the North Boulder Art District. For those of you who are less familiar with the project, the museum will anchor a creative campus at the corner of Violet and Broadway in the North Boulder Art District. So we are working on the programming of the museum space and have just entered what's called the concept design phase of the project. And so right now, the architects and the various teams of folks are working on how will the museum be laid out onto the acreage of the site and vis-a-vis the other components of the campus. We expect that that work will be completed in the fall. There will be multiple spots of community engagement with small groups of people, and then the hope is this fall there will be a much larger opportunity, which we tentatively have in September. It could slide later, but, and we'll communicate the exact dates, but where an opportunity for the whole community can come and see progress to date, give feedback on some of the options that are being proposed by the architect. And again, the folks that are working on this most closely with us right now are the architect that was chosen called Soil, which is out of Brooklyn, New York, and they're partnered with the local architect Coburn, who has proven to be an essential part of the equation to really educate all of us on what the city of Boulder's requirements are, so that we don't get down a path that actually isn't buildable in the city. So really exciting work that's getting done. We've got to do very fun things like look at a million different gallery spaces and say yes, no, as well as talk about how the education spaces get activated, what does the community really tell us they're wanting. And so a lot of good work is being done with that regard. And the next kind of big step will be in September, hopefully. Might be a little later, where we'll invite everybody to come in and really meet the architects again, and also see what's kind of going on with the project. So I guess stay tuned. We're still at a shovel in the ground in 2027, which maybe seems far away, but to us, it's really not far away. And we're working hard both on the building and also continuing the capital campaign to raise funds for the project. So thank you.
Thank you. Question? Okay, great. Any other? All right, so that is all I have for the public participation. And we will move on to commission business and the leadership position appointments. So staff was taking nominations, which do you want to receive first? No nominations. Well, we both self-nominated to continue, Jeffrey and I.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm way off base here, but historically, we've also opened it up to nominations at the meeting. So if there's anybody on the commission, Cheryl, you online also, that want to throw their name into their hat into the ring for either of these positions, this is when you can do it.
Yeah, I think Lauren said it in the email, both of us are fine with serving again, but if someone is willing to serve and wants to, I think either or either of us are happy to give other folks opportunities.
Can't really see Cheryl, so I don't see any hand up. Okay.
I agree. Oh no, I don't agree. I agree. I support the silence of people appreciating the two of you for stepping up. I am happy to step aside and allow you both to continue leading.
I think you both are doing a great job. So I have no other nominations.
Thank you.
Don't fix.
We might be coming for you next week.
Awesome. All right. So we've got. Jeffrey, the best. Oh,
Yeah.
Right. Nice try though. Sorry, live editing is helpful. Okay.
Great, anybody would like to make a
I'll
motion?
take that motion. I move that Carolyn Ford be appointed chair and that Jeffrey Cashman vice chair.
Second that.
Great, any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you guys, it's an honor. And I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you.
All right, matters from the commissioners, so we're gonna move into, oh.
This is. Leadership.
Oh,
Because it
sorry.
is a formal vote.
Great,
The three appointments for Gary.
great.
And,
Great, so these are the appointments for commissioners to serve on the boards of these three organizations. And all of the current assignments are willing to come back to their appointed seats. And if there was anybody who does not wish to return or who would like to be considered for one of those seats for the Dairy Arts, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, now will be the time to raise your vote. Let's take this on. Okay, seeing none, would anybody like to make a motion? And we'll,
I will.
Right.
I'll move that Jeffrey be appointed as board member with the Dairy Art Center, Maria be appointed as board member with the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, and Cheryl be appointed as board member with the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Second,
I'll second.
great, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you, and thanks you guys, I always like getting your reports back. So, I know it takes a lot of extra work, so thank you. Okay, now we'll move into the liaison updates. So this is an opportunity for us to just share what we're hearing from our liaisons and what they're up to, and if there is any special information that the mission should know about, or the public wants to hear about, and then report.
I'll start.
Great.
PMOCA hosted at the Dairy Center, just a fantastic week time of materials, 5 talented Boulder artists. So if you all have a chance to see, you should see the film Play Not.
A little bit more about.
Oh, sorry. So 2 showings and completely packed for the one, so that was great. Also, if you go to BMOCA's website, you can see a number of summer camps. So everyone out there, if we're looking for things for their kids to do this summer, just a whole wealth of great opportunities for kids in art. Molly Gambrella will be speaking Saturday and Sunday. And you should all attend at the Boulder Main Library. And this is part of the thank you, Experiments in Public Arts, just rolls off your. That's gonna be fantastic. It's the exhibit and lecture. And I'll just let you know that I'm experiencing a little bit of Parlando by taking lessons with them, and they're
Oh,
it's really fun. Yeah, that's great.
I can share that I attended Frequent Flyers Pride Cabaret, had some friends in the show, it was super fun. They have the Aerial Dance Festival coming up in August, and the Junkyard is gonna partner with them for some artist meetup things happening during the week, to give them more space to just like have hangout, not just studio space. And then I'll plug something also happening in the Junkyard right now, which is the Boulder Comedy Festival. It happens all weekend, not just at the Junkyard, but tonight's show was sold out, so I'm sure that every other night is gonna be full. And if you want to go, you should get tickets. Yeah.
I don't have a ton of updates given the school year and everything else, but just something exciting that's going to be happening in October is Roots Music has a festival, and it's going to be, I think, pretty special, and it's a real weekend, and I know that they've been pretty hard at it. They have some big donors stepped in recently, and so it's just something that's going to be very unique to Boulder, I think. So just mark your calendars and get excited, and I'm sure I'll have more to share. They're not a liaison, but I am excited about.
I'm gonna add something on just regarding roots, and that is that Art and Community, which is the umbrella organization for the Boulder Burners community, is hosting our decompression party on September 27th. And so we've just started the art grant cycle for that. So if there are local artists, who have art that they may want to bring to a Burning Man style party, they can reach out to me and I'll get you in contact with the art grant committee. The art grants are typically $500,000 at the max. But it's a fun time to showcase some art. And usually visual, some visual arts, and then sculptural arts, music, experiences. So. Cheryl, you're just a big glare to me, so I'm sorry. On the screen.
It's because I'm in New York where everyone glares. I just want to say that it is Streetwise Mural Art Walking Tour season. The next one is July 12th. Gonna double check that. Yes, July 12th at 10 a.m. You can check their website for other ones. I have not been on one. I'm going on one on July 12th, so I would love to see you there. But I've heard good things. I'm excited.
I've been traveling for much of the last 45 days, so I've not gotten to see as much as I want to, but I've got lots of things lined up in July. I did get to see the Duquesne Tamburitzans up at Chautauqua last month, and also two new folks to the GOS support grant program, Cultural Caravan and Viva Theater. I got to see their week of shows with Cultural Caravan, and it was a really fantastic festival for the entire week. And Viva did Our Town, which sounds like it might be passe, but it's just as relevant as ever. And to see that community organization put that production on with people on stage, but basically just about everyone on stage is 60 or better. And to see the cemetery scene where everyone up on the stage is over the age of 80, just will take your breath away. So I was very proud of that. Yeah.
I can share, KGNU has, July 11th is going to be their Resistance Art Warriors open reception. So it's going to be a presentation of artists giving sort of protest art. And their website says that they're still taking applications. So if you're interested, go to their website and hit them up. And then T2 Dance is also taking applications for their Versatility Dance Fest, which is happening in January of 2026. And then they are also going to be hosting the Choreo Fest for dance choreographers, August 4th through 10th in town. So those are opportunities. KGNU has a lot of fun sort of blues events coming up on their website. And I feel like there was one other. Oh yes, Brazil Fest is happening August 7th through 10th, and that is Boulder Samba School. Having some events at Junkyard Social Club, at the Downtown Band Shell, at Music. So that's going to be a fun 4 or 5 days of dance and Brazilian music. So check it out. All right. From there, we can go on to our commission work items, which is our small local groups. And if anybody has an update on their issues and what we're working this up to.
I can share a little bit about the funding support committee. Lauren, myself, Gaia, and Emmy, who's the city web designer, met. Resource page on the city page, opposite Rights of Culture. So you kind of have to know that it exists to find it. So we spent some time thinking about it from a user perspective, how to find what exists, finding the links that are currently broken, thinking about how it could get organized differently so that it's easier to find what you need. So we left Emmy with a list of things to work on, and they're gonna add some more possible grant opportunities. In fact, if anybody has ones that they're aware of, or if you wanna poke around on that resource page, and if anything is missing, like I saw that the mayor credit wasn't on there. Yeah, let Lauren know, and Lauren can share it with Emmy. And then once it's updated, I offered to give us just a little walkthrough of it so that we can then meet with our liaison organizations and make them more aware of it and how to use it. I think that'll be especially helpful for some of those also applying for individual grants to know where else they can get more funding support.
Jeffrey's been traveling a lot, so.
Can you just send me that
I will
email
send it.
with the attachment this time?
Oh, dear.
Hey, it'll make it so much easier,
Yes.
so much more efficient.
Yeah. So we are in a holding pattern. Anybody else?
I too have been traveling, so we are in a holding pattern, and I don't think Kelly's there. Correct.
All right. Moving on to our budget presentation by Elliot. Welcome and nice to see you.
Yes, it's been some time. I'm
Almost
happy
like
to
a
be here
year.
though. Yeah, I think a little less than a year. So today I really want to look at. See if this goes into the presentation. There we go. Really just kind of want to give you guys a high level update on city finances across the entire organization, kind of what is being discussed from the headwinds of sales and use tax as well as property taxes. Of course, with the new passage of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Fund, 2A, any change in sales tax projections impacts the fund health overall. So always keeping a close eye on it. So today we'll just dive in, really focusing first on this kind of the citywide revenue projections. So there was a press release that went out last week under the title of City Freezes Hiring for Most Vacant Positions and Seeks to Reduce Spending in 2025. That's across the entire organization. So we're working with central finance right now to identify any places where we can have some cost savings. There's some flexibility there, which is great. We've basically been instructed that fund balance can be used as a cost saving. So when it comes to arts, culture, and heritage, we still feel very solid in what we're doing and the programs that we're standing up and trying to support this year. So no changes there. Don't anticipate any changes either. The biggest thing right now for community vitality is really that hiring freeze is what's impacting us as a department. Any position that's considered non-essential, asterisk, I would love to define that for you, but I can't right this moment. Is basically held frozen, vacant until end of December this year. Not a lot of room for enhancements across the general fund, or really any funds for that matter. The big caveat there is with the arts, culture, and heritage, everything that was approved for 2025 was approved as one time. So technically, everything that we asked for in 2026 would be an enhancement. Again, I don't foresee any issues with that. Staff has been working diligently with our consultants to identify the best use of those funds, and central finance is very aware of that. And the last thing we want to do is just let a fund balance grow for the sake of growing. So we want to make sure we get those dollars programmed. So I do not anticipate any holds on that. Overall, it's looking about an $8 to $10 million reduction in revenues over the next couple of years. That's every sales and use tax. So not just obviously arts and culture. They will have their share of a little bit of a reduction, but it's not nearly as dramatic because the percentage of 3.5 million versus 120 million is quite a bit smaller number. So that's really the big news that's coming on. There will be a council meeting, I believe it's actually tomorrow night. That they'll, central finance and the central budget staff will be presenting with them. I strongly encourage you to tune in or at least catch up with the summary, post that. I think there'll be some more details in regards of what that reduction actually looks like and the numbers that we're seeing. We're still working with our partners at CU for our economic projections and really trying to shift from where we were in 2022 with a very conservative outlook. We in 23 and these other years, we've kind of middle of the road. Let's not be overly conservative. So we restrain program expansion, but let's not be overly optimistic either so that we come short of revenue projections. So we were really close last year in our revenue projections. I believe we were off by like 0.5% from what we projected. So kudos to CU and our central finance staff for doing a good job of really making sure that what we say is going to happen actually happens. Looking at this year, I wanted to put together a few slides for you all, kind of selfishly as well. We as in community vitality and the arts and culture staff we really want to wrap our head around like what is arts funding. So this pie chart that you see here, this is inclusive of every funding source for arts and culture programming. A big portion of this goes into public arts, and the next slide will tell a little bit tale about that. But this is every fund that contributes to arts programming across the city. You can see in that chart below things like transportation and facilities, the downtown commercial district. With that 1% for CIP, it's equating to a pretty significant bump into total arts funding, which is really great. And I know we've talked a lot about it, but we've never really wrapped our head around the data. And this is where we're getting our head wrapped around that data. And it was a fun chart to put together to really understand where it's all coming from and kind of the percentages of it. I will say there's a small caveat here that some of this funding is not, I would say, programmed exactly. It is earmarked for public art from the CIP. Brendan and Jake and Matthew have been working very hard on making sure that does get more official in its programming. But it is kind of held aside for public art in these capital projects. So that's kind of neat to see how arts funding is not just from the arts and culture and heritage tax, but how we can lean into other funding mechanisms to help bolster art support across the organization.
That's a question, sorry.
Yeah,
not
no.
at the item.
No.
Can you tell me what the yellow letters are? I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, yep. So the biggest piece of pie here is arts, culture, and heritage. That is the 2A funding. The second biggest is facilities, which is at 24%, that teal. The main bulk of that is the Western City campus. That has a big 1%, obviously a very large project. So 1% of that's going to equate to a lot of dollars. So that's the second biggest source for kind of 2025. The yellow portion is the CCRS. So that's a combination of 1% of some CCRS projects, as well as 1% from the remaining 90% that's dedicated to public art. So CCRS isn't just funding just from that 1%, as you guys may know. There's a earmarked 1% of the remaining 90% that goes to public art. But some capital projects that are funded by CCRS also help contribute to that. So it bolsters it even more so. The 3% there is from transportation. The 5% is from the general fund. And really that general fund portion is, we call it GovCap, the government capital fund. It's technically a separate fund, but the fund is supported and transferred from the general fund. So Peter to Paul kind of thing, but it is technically general fund dollars. And that remaining 3% is the downtown commercial district. And that's specifically for our Spruce Garage and some public art that we're working to get that going as well.
Can I add to this too?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you found this fun to put this together. We need to talk about your definition. Fun, but
It's in the word fun.
this is, this draft in particular is like what also Brendan, like you said, Brendan and Jake and Matthew work on. Like directly work on like managing the public art projects with this funding. There are also a bunch of other funds with the city and a bunch of other, the support that the city offers that is not even included in this, right? Like, to me, I think I estimated, a few months ago, it's $2 to $3 million of subsidies for Mocha and Chautauqua and the dairy, right? There are arts programs happening in other departments too, like Parks and Rec. There's a grant program through the human, through HHS, thank you, the Human Relations Fund, right? So this is really talking about the funding, where the funding is that we are actively spending, but we're also advising, we're also like partnering and working with other departments on other work that isn't like directly money coming to us that we're spending, right? Just for some context. Thank you.
That's a great point. These are the dollars that we get to have a lot of say in, which is great. So it's a good amount of effort that we have to put forward. So this is looking at funding by type. And the orange is kind of the administrative costs, and a small caveat on the administrative costs, that is just the arts staff. So no other community vitality staff is funded by arts, culture, and heritage. The one exception is there's that cost allocation, which is funding like central finance, HR, those kind of positions. So really that's what that admin piece is. So none of the other positions within community vitality are included in this admin picture here. The grants and sponsorships, you can see there in yellow. The reason why public art looks so much bigger is because of all those other funding sources that I just mentioned on the previous slide. It's a significant investment in public art across the entire city, and it shows up in this graph here and how you can see how those funds are spread out. So what does all this mean? Come September, I'll be coming back with a little bit more information, as you guys probably recall from last year, what the presentation was for the 2026 budget. I'll be doing the same thing again this year. We're in the process of finalizing our budget. It's actually technically due this Friday. And once that goes to central finance, they'll consolidate it across the entire organization, have internal discussion with the executive budget team. Excuse me, that's made up of specs from the city manager's office, as well as central budget and a couple rotating directors, and they'll be reviewing all submissions across the city to understand kind of what our opportunities are and where we have any trade-offs that are necessary. And then that will then be consolidated. We'll get that information back, have an opportunity to also discuss with EBT any findings that they had, and then that will be presented to council. So all of that happens, and then we come back to the commissioners before council actually has a vote for it and ask for your support in the 2026 budget submission that we have going forward.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We had discussed that we were putting in for a adjustment to base request. And I just wanted to clarify how the budget shortfall impacts that, or doesn't impact that, or.
Has not impacted it, so that we've heard. So that's still going forward. That's kind of the use of fund balance as budget reduction, so to speak, is really the approach that we took with the arts, culture, and heritage fund specifically to be able to move forward with that adjustment.
I have a couple questions. So we wanted to have input on the arts budget, we would need to go to city council meeting, right? Or would we have that input in this as a commission in this forum?
Kind of all of the above. I would say for the drafting of said budget before it even goes to council, I feel like with what we've done with E3, cats.
The cats,
Thank you.
PSP.
PSP, there's so many acronyms that
Yes.
I'm trying to remember them all. That's kind of what we've been really leaning heavily into to do budget drafting. And I know you guys have all kind of had a good opportunity to work with them. So we've been taking a lot of that input and using that to actually make the draft budget. Once the budget's drafted and gone up to central finance, it's kind of like over there now. And then we will get back what they have kind of deemed as like, yes, let's go forward with this, or they have questions, they need some clarification. So that's kind of the internal process, if you will. And then once council gets it, the first, they'll have a presentation, which is late August. And then they'll also have a study session. So there's no public comment during the study session, but you are all certainly welcome to attend and always welcome to reach out to council members. But really, the first time that public participation is available is the first reading of the budget, which is in October.
Thanks. And the second question, when you talked about the fund balance, was there a fund balance from the arts budget from 2024? And, or is there one anticipated for 2025? What, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fund balance, it's a fancy way of saying money that's left over. There's nothing in 2024, unfortunately, because the fund didn't exist in 2024. 2025 is the first year we actually have the dedicated fund. So at the end of this year, technically, if we didn't spend every single penny, we would have a fund balance. With the adjustment to base, we're getting pretty close to not having any fund balance, which is good. That means we're programming every single dollar. Of course, we don't want to go negative because then we could fall short of our obligations. So at the end of 2025, we do not anticipate a very large fund balance. There always is. It's hard to get every single dollar actually out the door and in people's hands by December 31st. Sometimes it's literally a check that just doesn't cash in time, kind of thing. In 2026, the fund balance will continue to be very close to zero. I would say we're not going to operate at zero, because in the chance that we have sales and use tax projections not come in as we projected, then we would also run into that negative amount. Reserves are really there for those catastrophic emergencies. If we had a fire and we had a flood, those types of things. So we can't really tap into those reserves as a use of fund balance for just general operating purposes. But the reserves are there for like a rainy day fund is what they're there for. So when I say fund balance, I should clarify that it's fund balance after those reserves have been earmarked.
Sorry,
No, it's
and
okay.
do those roll over then to the arts, does the arts fund balance and reserve roll over into the arts budget?
That's correct. So the next year beginning fund balance, so how much money do you start the year off with, is technically the previous year's ending fund balance plus the previous year's reserve. So next year, let's say at the end of this year, you reserved $300,000 and there was $100,000 left that you didn't spend. $400,000 is your new starting balance going into the next year. So that reserve just kind of carries through.
And do you have any experience with our council with how they view having a growing reserve in terms of getting our current budgetary needs fulfilled? Do they counteract it, or?
So the council has some say into the reserves, but really it's a general a government standard for financing that every fund has a 16.7% reserve. They did make a requirement for city to have a 20% reserve in the general fund. That's why it has a little bit different reserve than everyone else. The downtown commercial district, University Hill, every single fund that we operate is beholden to that 16.7% as part of a government standard for fund health. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's expected that we'll have a reserve.
Correct.
And, yeah, and it's not counted against us in our future budgetary assets.
That is correct. That's correct.
Anybody else? Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
We will wait with bated breath for
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
September, whenever you're. coming
Yeah,
back.
and I would say, if you get a chance to check out council's, presentation that they're gonna have here in the near future, definitely take a look and give you a little more insight. More details into these numbers, so you have more data if you wanna chew on that. The other thing is working with CU, we're constantly trying to get projections updated. Again, not trying to not be too conservative, where it's like, whoa, let's not spend money because we're worried. And also not like, oh, we're not worried about money, let's spend it all, right? Trying to find that happy medium so that we maintain a healthy balance and we can actually pay our obligations. So I know the S word in 2027 may have some Sundance.
We had no idea what you were talking about.
I didn't want to say it because I don't want to jinx it, but that may have an impact as well. Traditionally, February is not a super high revenue producing from a sales and use tax perspective. So having an event like Sundance where we attract a lot of hopefully tax paying customers will help with that. So go out and buy Boulder.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, moving on to Sarah with the grants program.
Yes, so today we have community project grants for individuals. As you know, you can approve individual applications, approve all applications, approve individual applications with questions, or postpone approval of applications. These are the scores.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, sorry, yeah, these are the scores.
This is the perfect.
Yeah. I can share since I sat on as commissioner of, with the grants panel, that, these selected applications, I feel like represent a pretty diverse, range of artistic visions, from visual arts to music to theater. There's a documentary in there, queer publication, so I felt like that was neat to see. Yeah, a pretty diverse array of projects. I mentioned this in the last meeting, but one of the couple things that came up during the process was, the grants panel wanting a little bit more clarity in the future around what constitutes a project. You can have a start and ending versus being an ongoing, operation. And then, definitely felt like a lot of the applicants, could have benefited from more training around setting clear goals and ways to measure their goals through their evaluation. So I know that can be something that the commission thinks about, how we can support individual artists in the future. Thank you, Jill.
I have a question, just in relation to our prior speakers' points, was there consideration and what was the process around deciding how far down to drop it, or what was that?
I mean, yeah, it was very competitive, and it was, from my memory, Sarah, Lauren, maybe you can help me with it, like, there's really only one that ended up jumping, from being below, from the original scoring. And yeah, some of these conversations around types of projects and evaluations and goals and clarity of goals, yeah, was a part of that conversation for sure. And I don't think that I think that's why the rubric exists, to help create some way to measure a variety of different opinions. So it wasn't just like across the board, like everybody's like, these are the 5. It was like, these are all great, you know, and how do we measure them against each other?
I'll add that there was profound disappointment that we couldn't fund more projects.
Yeah.
This is really strong projects this year.
I'm glad we've got mission liaisons basically for the panels. I personally feel very removed from the process this year, given the newly formed panels. And yeah, it's just, thank you for volunteering. I think I'm up for the next one. So thank you for doing that tonight.
And did we do the kind of line that we normally do, like above warranty, low, did we not? For this type of grant?
I would say no, because of how competitive it was, we didn't have to. I don't think there was one that they wouldn't recommend. I could go back and ask them, but essentially they wanted to fund as far down as they could score wise.
All right, do we have motion language? Great. Would you like to make a motion?
That we approve the following organizations for the 2025 community project grants for individuals. Julia Shawad, Nathan Story, Aaron Preston, Graham Fuller, and Abby Collins.
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And because we received an adjustment to base, we have additional organizations that we can fund with general operating support grants. The commission may approve all of the grants for the panel's recommendation, approve individual grants while submitting specific questions, or postpone approval of individual grants pending the answers to specific questions. And I will say that the panel did recommend a score threshold for this fund. There was only one extra large application, as you recall, so that's not relevant. And so these are the scores for the large organizations.
And can you explain in the packet,
Yes.
there's like light green and then dark green, or I guess purple on here?
So on the PowerPoint slide here, the green rows are those that have been awarded funding already. And the purple is those recommended for funding at this meeting. These are the scores for the mid organizations. High scores in this category. And then finally, the small organizations.
Given the threshold on these, what was the score for the extra large organization? There was just the one.
27.8.
Okay, thank you. That's good perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to see the other, so there's three, and then the next slide, it has the vote language. Would you like me to go back to any of the other scores? Would you
If we could just kind of scroll through each one,
Really
so we
fast, so
see,
you can-
just see the add-ons.
Okay, so here, I'll start at the top again. So we have large, mid-size, and then small. These are the large. Again.
Wildly exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, there's great organizations kind of being brought up, rolled on that.
Great, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the following organizations from 2025 general operating support grants: Compass Renaissance, Open Studios, Boulder Symphony and Music Academy, Ars Nova, Chamber Singers, Deep Company, Movement School, Turning the Wheel Productions, Inc., Boulder Chamber Orchestra, Boulder Concert Band, and Airclose Collective.
All right, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
I should.
Now we have two arts education grant reports. You can approve both reports, approve individual reports while submitting questions, postpone approval of individual reports pending questions, or not.
Anything anybody wants to pull out for a separate decision? Which them? Would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the grants reports from the Countermounts and Colorado Shakespeare Festival.
Any discussion on these?
I will say that the person who oversees the violence prevention program, within the schools regionally for, the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. Her name is Amanda, and she has her new book, which was released this week with this as an example of case study. It's really exciting for them and for her.
I was really excited by both the reports, obviously. I just look back at my in-school programming and how instrumental that was, yeah. Participating in the arts and being interested in the arts and I just think they're both really amazing. So I was glad they were successful.
I really appreciate how Catamounts was very nimble and really adjusted their programming to each of the kids' specialties or nuances and personality. And Shakespeare is just very timely and needed for students in school. I think that's what Shakespeare and Ellie talked about. She was so very incredible programs.
Big impact.
How did they decide on the schools that they participated?
I don't recall.
One of them was in Douglas and Whittier.
It was kind of what, that was what they kind of, part of the, I can't remember the
I don't
application.
remember the
Yeah.
application.
They worked with them for quite some time.
Yeah.
Not that bad. Long time ago.
Sometimes it comes down to the proactiveness of whichever teacher is running the program. I can't recall from that particular application.
And I know that there's been growing difficulty getting into older schools.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that reference to either so. All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. And then, Sarah, are you gonna run the liaisons or? Which one of you wants to talk about liaison positions?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Well, I suppose since you've,
Oh, sure, I can.
this was an initial draft assignment of general operating support liaison roles. Again, these are all organizations that would be funded this year with our general operating support grants. There's a maybe on JLF Colorado, just highlighted because they have not submitted their recertification. This is certainly amendable. It was put together with the interest of trying to accommodate people's requests, a mix of large and small organizations, and I wanted each commissioner to have a new organization that had. So, have at it.
So it's like Monopoly where we get the trade
Yeah,
properties.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was really hoping to get all new organizations if possible, so if the ones that I will be. That I've already spent 4 years with is Third Law, Boulder Samba School, KGNU, and T2 Dance. And they're great organizations, nothing against them, but I would love the opportunity to. Yeah, and
Yeah.
T2.
Have you
Okay.
worked with Mariposa?
Have I?
Yeah, have you?
No.
I don't know them. So I'd be interested to get to know them, but I'd be willing to trade one of those for either Third Law to two or any of the dance ones. Samba.
Yeah. Are they, what size is Mariposa?
Super tiny.
Super tiny. Okay, so that would be like,
Sure. That's right. Oh,
Cheryl.
Gerald.
Hey, Cheryl.
Hey, I'm not complaining because it's a great organization and I know the ED and she's great, but I got Junkyard and I didn't know if that was a choice of Jill's or not.
Yeah, it was brought to my attention that that was a thought for this year, or that somebody else could.
Okay, I'm perfectly happy to take it. I just didn't know if it was unintentional. As long as it's done with intentionality, that's fine.
Yes.
And then Jill, as E-Town, as a venue, would you benefit from potentially liaising with them to work with, I've met with them, but there's not much I can help them with.
I mean, yeah, like, yeah, honestly, it's great for me to build relationships with any of the organizations and the ones that I
I think,
volunteered to work with. Sometimes it's because I already have partnerships with them and it feels like an opportunity to develop it even further, but I agree, like being able to talk to them about just
I think they could really benefit from
Operations.
your,
financial stuff.
exactly.
So,
Um,
should I just unceremoniously, I'm just doing
Yeah.
it.
can I take our
Maybe-
parts? I don't make it,
Sure.
and yeah,
Oh,
I'll take our parts.
Yeah.
And I need
Everything's
to,
great.
I wanna sit down with Megan and kind of do some coaching. And I met the new development director at the new local.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's moved to that. I
Yeah.
met her tonight. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I just got that. That was Cheryl's before. And I got to introduce the films last year and that's just, I lobbied for that one.
Okay,
Why, what do you?
well, I was
that?
I'm just looking for other training.
Yeah, no, I was First Financial Institution 3 years ago, come in as a sponsor for them. Now they have 4 sponsors. So I want to throw it out to them and say, hey, this is important.
Yeah.
Let's support this. And so I've really enjoyed doing that. I would love being in that way. So I'm gonna interact with them regardless. So if you really want that,
No, it was just an idea.
okay.
Yeah, you're late.
Good
Can I go
coach.
coach some of your late?
Well, when she's not here.
Um. Catamounts sounds interesting. What size are they?
how many mid or large?
Are they
So
really?
maybe for KGNU.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love that.
I
just
think
wanna-
they would appreciate it.
Yeah. The new building and stuff again. Okay. Cool. Is anybody else interested in trading?
Which one?
Live trading.
Yeah, live trading.
Cheryl.
Boulder Samba, they're not. Get rid of them, love them.
Yeah, right.
The only thing I'm thinking of, and it's really just my cultural heritage and feeling a little connected to it right now in Boulder, is Gaia. I don't know if you have contacts at the JCC, because I'd be happy to take that, but I don't know if I have anything that you're interested in, and I'm not happy with everything I got, if that makes sense.
You're not happy.
I'm not happy. Yes, I am happy, right? Anyway, I'm happy.
Carol, I see you have Colorado Shakespeare Festival. Keep in mind, I'm on that board also, so they get double up on us.
Okay. And are you happy with that? Like, are you
Fine with it, because I'm already on the board.
okay?
Does Cheryl want JCC? Is that what is
She
happening?
would, yeah, she would like
Yeah,
that.
Cheryl, you may have.
Yes, but I might be protective of some of my others. So let's see what.
You know, I will take, from your list, if you feel like you have too many, I'm happy to take local theater
Oh, I love their fantastic.
again.
Oh,
because I
That
have
was what I was looking for. That was my new one.
it.
Okay. Local theater was my new theater that I was excited about, but I'm being very demanding now. So I drive a hard bargain. That's good.
Well, have you had Betsy before?
Yes, I have had Betsy before.
By the way, Butterfly Effect Theater is now Boulder Ensemble Theater Company again. It's
Yes.
no longer, Butterfly Effect. Thank you, that's better.
Remember saying
All right.
Shakespeare Fest?
Sorry?
You saying the Shakespeare Fest come to use?
I'm already on the board, so if they have double up, I'm fine with them actually having two voices.
Okay, any more?
I'll take some, but if you take turning the wheel,
Sure.
there you go, got it. 2 weeks.
We'll get there. So Sarah, what are the next steps for this? We send a connection email to all of the organizations with all the commissioners?
Yeah, introductory.
Yeah.
And we don't need a vote, just a like nodding, like we're cool with this.
I believe it's like general consensus.
Right. And how many more are we bringing into the fold this year, given the expansion of GOS support?
Like 20.
That's, I know, it's a lot more. Which is very exciting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Are you guys happy? Like Christmas?
Yes. Like Christmas.
We have to give.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if we're all set.
Yeah, and then that'll give us.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then finally, we're going to host an extra summit this year based on the knowledge that there could be some advice about how to draft a grant application, particularly for a project grant. So we're going to be hosting that at University Memorial Center on August 21st. And we have one in October of expanding your reach. I like that title. It's about marketing and maybe will be related to Sundance in some way with business.
Right, okay. For the grant writing one, the intended audience of that, is that individual artists, is that organizations,
Both.
is, okay, is it just development directors, not specific, is it specific to our grant program?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
How to write a compelling narrative for our grant applications, how to have measurable goals.
But for ours specifically. Thank you, very cool.
Great,
Thank you very much.
excellent. Brendan,
All right,
public art.
yay, public art. It's Chris Roth.
He is online.
Great.
Hello.
So Lauren's gonna pull up our presentation. And I'm gonna just give a quick little introduction. This is Chris Roth.
Oh, I agree with this.
He's a contractor who I hired to assist and lead some transportation related public art projects. He's worked with 9.Arts before founding CR Projects, a Denver-based art advisory firm where he is the principal. He has over 11 years experience in the arts industry, including projects at the Colorado Convention Center, Denver Theater District, and numerous commercial properties in Colorado and nationwide. So he's going to be kind of leading a couple of these transportation projects. And this is one that he will start with. I'll be kind of mentoring because it's different. Public and private are sort of different processes. And of course, Jake will also be assisting, but Chris, go ahead, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Brendan. So we are looking to get approval to move forward on a couple of public art locations, which we've identified on the Bear Creek Greenway Trail. So basically, we were able to seek out a couple of areas which are near Baseline Road. Essentially, it's two underpass locations, each one with kind of two main walls as kind of the entries on each side of the underpasses. So essentially, it's 4 walls, 2 locations as part of the trail. But we think it's a great opportunity for something like a mural or a mosaic application on these underpass walls that would be outwardly facing the bikers and pedestrians that frequent the trail. We have put together a potential panel with voting and non-voting members, including a technical review committee. So yeah, looking to get all of that approved this evening. Just jumping ahead, we have kind of compiled a total budget for these locations of, I think it's on the oh yeah, here we go. Of $125,000, all inclusive for all of our expenses here. Brendan, do you want to talk a little bit about how we kind of came up with that number, just
Sure.
sort of kind of combining some other budgets that we had in play?
So our policy allows us, if there's several projects within a close area, it allows us to combine those budgets for more impact and a streamlined process. So we're actually combining roadway improvement funds from 28th and Colorado, baseline roadway improvement, and the middle 30th project. So those projects, 28th and Colorado is already completed. So I'm not sure if you know that intersection. There's new crosswalks and bulb outs, and that project was completed. We were too late to actually integrate any art at that location. And if you drive by, you'll notice there's not really good locations for art. Transportation projects are kind of a tricky one. The baseline roadway and middle 30th are gearing up and kicking off. Those again are more sort of bulb outs, crosswalks, street lights.
I walked the site with Erica Amador, who's our senior transportation planner, and Brian Wiltshire. Again, we couldn't figure out how we would integrate art in some of these transportation projects, so we decided to combine these three budgets for a total of $125,000. And then we also have already gotten approval for the locations that we've identified, so the next couple slides will be, you'll see, we can go back to the slide if you want, but if you want to go to the next slide. So these are the locations we're talking about. These are still within, owned, sort of maintained by transportation. So they have final approval on these locations. But again, looking at these sites, we thought this would be a perfect, like these entryways, they're not that pretty, right? So if we can add some paint and add some tile, we think we can make this a much more enjoyable space for our pedestrians and our cyclists. So this is where we've been approved to spend the funds for this public art project. And we can go back to the other slide.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about these locations too is they are already built. There's no construction plan for them. Minimal like need for any kind of like site improvements or cleanup. So they are ready to go, like very much as you saw in need of some improvements. So I think they're great opportunities to have some new artwork, as we've been able to budget from some of these other locations. So just kind of breaking out the budget a little bit further. So we'd like to put together a call for entry which for the two locations, with a total budget per location of $55,000. Again, I think the idea is that we would have, single artists kind of approach like, each underpass as a single location, even though it's kind of the two walls on the two entry sides. We've got our honorarium budget put together for which would allow for 4 proposals. We've accounted for panel stipends and the cost of the online call for entry. Also, of course, built in a little bit of contingency as is often needed in these sort of things. Looking to kind of kick things off in the third quarter of this year. We've got our community selection panel of Jeffrey, of Artie Sandstone, who's a local artist, Gwen, who you of course heard from earlier. Hi, Gwen. Scott McCary, who is a community member and also the director of transportation services for the University of Colorado Boulder, and Laura Hendrickson, who is a community member who lives nearby the locations. We've also got our technical review committee of Erica Amador, Brian Wiltshire, and Mark Garcia.
Well, we can go to the visuals again if you want. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any questions on any of this?
Question on the budget. Assume that, we've all seen those underpasses that are applying for graffiti. So if they are, tagged, who gets called for that? Is it, and if you have money in your budget to maintain that?
Great question. So we would, once the art is installed, our program would maintain the artwork. So if it's any tile or any additional paint, and if those areas get tagged or defaced, we would have our maintenance budget deal with the art. Once it gets beyond the art locations, if it's more of a structural issue with the bridge, that goes back to transportation.
Do you have funds in your budget to maintain it, or do you need to take them out of this?
We do have an allocation every year, which will pay for maintenance for public art. So we're not actually using 1% dollars for maintenance. Yeah.
And that was part of their entire inventory that they came in and did like a year or two ago and really just started going, okay, what art do we own? What's the responsibility of it? Who's maintaining it, and do we have a for lack of a better term, not a budget, but a fund, what's the word I'm looking for?
Maintenance.
A thing to take care of as things happen.
A plan?
But I think
Good.
that's my root of my question was, this is growing the collection, so I
Yes.
understand that
Right.
the assessment was done, and some pieces were moved over. But this is obviously a new piece, so the
Right.
fund you have is adequate.
Yeah.
We're talking.
Yeah, any other questions or comments on the panel or the locations or the budget allocation? Sure.
How, oh, so I can phrase it. You know how in some big cities they have art, like the elephants that live in New York City, or Amal who went to old cities. How are things like that, if something like that was to be brought to Boulder, how would something like that funded versus?
Great question too. So these, again, these are 1% of those capital improvement projects. Which we allocate, and we actually go out and commission site-specific, unique, permanent artwork for the city. Those existing artworks, you know, artists have existing artworks, they want to display temporarily in city parks or in other venues. That if they did want to do that, they would come and present to our standing selection panel. So our standing selection panel is a group, Maria actually serves on that panel. And there's 4 other community members who serve on that panel. They deal with donations of public art. So if somebody wants to donate a work to the city, they review that for against our criteria to see if we can place it somewhere and afford to maintain it. They also take care of deaccessioning of artwork. So any of these artworks that we install that are permanent, something starts to fail and we really can't maintain it any longer. They're the first panel to review deaccessioning it out of the collection. And then finally, to your point, is this temporary work. So somebody had an existing work they wanted to display in Boulder, they would come to a standing selection panel, present standing selection panel for review against criteria and all kinds of logistical concerns, and then make a recommendation that would come back to the arts commission. Generally, they still, and so Experiments in Public Art is our sort of our temporary art program. They are the ones that sort of manage that process. Generally speaking, they're looking for works that really have a connection to Boulder or have connection to Boulder and can be site specific or tell a kind of a bigger social story for Boulder. That's kind of that's how the panel sort of operates. So, but there is definitely a process. Yeah.
And then this particular project, the two locations, so the $55,000 budget, that's gonna be for artists.
Well, yeah, we were thinking it might be, we could do it, and this comes down to our orientation meeting with our panel. Do we want to do one call where it's one artist who does all 4 locations for art, or does it make more sense to have 2 calls where there's 1 artist per location? So those sorts of little details like that will kind of flesh out as we draft the call. Any other comments or questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody like to make a motion?
Move that the Bear Creek Greenway Trail Public Art Selection Panel and project initiation be recommended to the city manager for approval.
All in favor? Anybody abstaining? Oh, you're in favor?
No, I'm in favor, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't have to abstain because I'm on the committee. Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chris. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. All right, Lauren.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
A very quick blueprint update. So no emails have gone out, as you may have noticed. I hope you've all noticed. I've been very, very curious. We are in the amassing information, like essentially the cats are working on their phase 1 recommendations and their report. At this point, they've gone through their community engagement process for phase 1. They've looked at a ton of national best practices and other communities, our peer communities. And they've also looked at our citywide goals. So to try to get all of those to like integrate and to fit together, both for more citywide recommendations and for the budget process. They are in town next Monday and Tuesday. They'll be talking to the advisory committee to talk through the first round, or like second round of phase 1 recommendations. But first they spoke about the grant program specifically to get their back. And they'll also be kicking off phase 2, so meeting with staff and visiting venues. Phase 2 is really focused on public art in particular. on venues and how venues might need to be supported for the Sundance Film Festival, what else we need to do for the Sundance Film Festival. And then also just policy, bigger comprehensive planning, economic policy, and tightening up the grant program and specifically working with, staff like Sarah on building out the grant program, the new grant program, right? So we haven't had any updates, because they're just sort of working behind the scenes at this moment. I think the next public update, I hope to give a presentation to the Arts Commission, not being the budget, but about with recommendations from phase one, more content recommendations in August. To then bring to you. Sorry, everybody, we'll be done soon. So commission in August to give some initial like feedback, input, recommendations from the consultants. Which will then feed into this budget recommendation that goes to senior leadership, city council, et cetera. To then come back to you for a vote on a 26 budget, right? So first we'll just be talking about like, here's big ideas, big recommendations for phase one. But at this point, it's more of like I'm digging through all of this data that we've given them and that they've discovered too. So, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or input?
Was there anything surprising? The information that they collected?
No, I don't, no, not necessarily. Well, I think the surprise for all of us was Sundance, because we kind of went like, we have to actually really think about this big impact that's gonna have on the city and on the arts community, but in a really positive way. It was like a very, very happy surprise. Affordability is a big concern, like the things that come up to the top, we tend to hear a lot because we hear from all of you as commissioners, right? And I think we're plugged into the community enough to understand what we need, but it'll be just the planning for this like big impact in a positive way, right? Yeah.
I think a couple surprises for me were comparison to peer cities.
Yeah.
That in some areas you're either surpassing or peer cities that you're compared to last time.
Mhm.
Right, and finding new peer cities, so that was interesting to see that, and also what other cities are doing. And I think just their overall kind of refresh look at the grants program was very, very, say 50,000 foot. And I think that's a good refresh. Those are the two surprises.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Any questions about the managers?
Sorry, very chatty. On the venues, maybe you talked about this a little bit.
Sure.
At, the last on page 13. Or your second to last page. Talk about the new lease at the Dairy Center. I wonder if you could update us on that, and then also about collecting data on the arts venues and all that.
Oh,
A little bit more about these two.
Cindy still, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's not been studied, but the dairy lease is still in progress, so we can't, don't have any updates, I'm sorry to say, but it's in discussion, it's in progress. I'll certainly bring anything forward as it's public. And then an update on the venue study. So Cindy's been spearheading the venues research happily. Just like a minute about the venues research.
Yeah, couple works with the.
Oh, right, so good to see you.
Are you able to? I mean, I have some preliminary feedback from the venue user questionnaire that we had available, and it's not surprising. A lot of what we found from that study is just like there's not enough space or there's not enough time when the space that people need is available. And it's like from all of the disciplines. And so what we're doing now is looking at all of the spaces that we have and trying to get updated information. We're working on a cultural asset map, thank you. That'll just like map all of the cultural assets in the city, which will include venues, and to look at kind of where we're at with, what kind of venues we have and how that compares to the feedback that we got from the users.
And so being process.
And then just to connect the two conversations, so this will fold into the blueprint.
Yes.
And could there potentially be a recommendation for
Yeah,
new venues,
Something.
different venues, something?
yeah, something, whatever we might be able to do as a city. Yeah, how it fits into, the city facilities plan, which is like that conflict, that was with, that, right, like. How it fits into the comprehensive plan and conflict policies, right? I think there's a lot of bigger pieces that. Having the venue research data and how people will use our space is gonna be very helpful to tell us where we need to go with that.
And also, there are some organizations that are interested in the city, that are interested in creating some more venues that are just like for profit. So this is like, hey, look, there's a need, so. That, you know, and it might, maybe that will spur them to do more.
Thank you.
Like that.
I have a question. For the Boulder Art Suite. The civic dialogue and planning, how does one get involved?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that.
Register. How do you get involved?
How do I get involved?
Yeah,
How do other
email
people get
me.
involved? That's it.
Yeah, and well, I'm actually well, I've done it 2 years, so
Right.
I'm not like a old
No,
veteran
no,
at it. But I'm starting earlier this year, because
Okay.
like CU, they plan stuff out way in advance, so actually have a meeting tomorrow with our contact at CU. To get them kind of plugged in, so we can do some more programming complimentary, or at least like figure out if they can start planning things to happen during that week.
That's
But
really
yeah.
close to dates for conference on World Affairs too.
Yeah, it's usually like the week after, yeah. And we've partnered with CWA on a couple of things. This year was a little.
Yeah.
It's changed in the last couple of years from what it used to be, so trying to figure out where we can fit in. But yeah, I'm happy to chat with how and. Yeah, if you want to get involved.
I
do
want
that.
to be involved.
Yeah, we have we have a steering committee that you would be awesome on.
Thank you. Yes.
You're in.
Okay, thanks. I am
So. But anybody who wants to get involved can totally email me, sapucac@bouldercolorado.gov.
What are the dates?
April 3rd through the 11th, something like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have one other, issue that goes back to, our grants and the community projects for individual decisions.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see that we were bringing so many other organizations into the fold for GOS support. And that we created a threshold for that and really basically left no one out. So I'm asking as a question, what is the possibility or feasibility that the same may happen for the individual projects to be funded with a threshold, given the same consideration as the GOS support? And is there a timeline for that? Is there a possibility? Is there a timeline?
So I did submit that request,
Mhm.
it was denied,
By who?
well, to have the extra. Certain
Why
percentage.
you looking at me?
I can decide.
Come on, Elliot.
But it was like a $300,000 request, we received an approval for 150,000. That said, again, if an organization doesn't submit their recertification or. There's other possible things that I can foresee happening this grant cycle. And the reviewers discussed today, Maria, if you want to talk to that. They really would like more community project grants for individuals to be.
But this is small. But they're active.
Yeah, I think the panel today, again, you know, the quality of the grants that they read today and, just like observed them discussing, they're very high. And they would be interested, I think, you being a recommendation if there's additional funds on how to do something.
Okay,
Because obviously they've read the full. Read all the grants.
I'd love for that to kind of be top of mind when we're looking at additional funds or things that aren't funded otherwise.
And you'll be privy to that discussion further, actually, very soon.
Yes, I know, in July, correct? Yes, July 27th, something like that, yeah.
But if there is any additional funding that we can identify, I would say by the next commission meeting, we would be able to provide some of that information if we can expand some of it.
Okay, wonderful, great.
So
So we got possibility, timeline, thank you.
we will certainly look into it, see what we can do, and then any outcomes of changes to current recipients. Well, we can certainly talk about that.
Perfect, thank you.
And then you have another.
I just wanted to reiterate Maria's request. Please come on down. There is a public art lecture series Saturday at 2, Sunday at 3 at the Canyon Auditorium in the main library. Parking on the Arapahoe side because of the construction, but you'll see her big flowers, oversized flowers. Her lecture is going to be amazing. And also, if you haven't already, sign up for our public art tours. Saturday mornings at 9, Wednesday evenings at 5:30. Pretty much most Saturdays and Wednesdays throughout the summer. And this year we're adding 2 Spanish language tours, one at the end of July and one in August. So if you have Spanish language people in your lives, direct them to come and take a Spanish language public art tour.
Great. So, with that, we'll adjourn our meeting. I'm not gonna. No, fine.
Thank you.